Hey, welcome to Eyes, your Dutch uncle, where I talk about the truth and talk about life and love, family, healing, and everything in between. No sugarcoating, no pretense, just honest conversations from someone who has lived long enough to tell the truth and still have the ability to laugh about it. I'm Humes, also known as Eyes, your Dutch uncle. This is your first time coming in, I appreciate you. And if you've been here before, you already know you're always welcome. Before we get into the conversation, there is a episode called Who is Oz? If you have not heard that one yet, please go back and check it out when you get a chance. That one will give you a better understanding of who I am, where I come from, and why I am behind this mic. We are starting season one, starting with the family. Let's get started. Welcome to my world. Today, I'm going to talk about sibling rivalry. And I chose sibling rivalry as a first season because I think it's one of those things that touches people more, families more than people really want to admit. When folks hear sibling rivalry, most of the time they think about children fussing and fighting and arguing and getting on each other's nerves, like fussing over toys and clothes and who got the bigger piece of cake and who sat in the front seat. And all of that can be a part of it. But sibling rivalry can be a whole lot deeper than that. It can be hurt, be jealousy, misunderstanding, feeling overlooked, believing somebody else got more love, more attention, more protection and support. Now keep in mind, I'm not a therapist. I'm not here to diagnose your family, and I'm not here to tell you who was right or wrong. I don't know your whole story. It is my hope that while we are talking, you may hear something that makes you stop and say, wait a minute, never looked at it like that. And if that happens, then I'm on the right track. We're doing something good. You got to keep in mind when it comes to siblings, your brothers and sisters, those relationships are often some of the longest relationships that you've had for your spouses and careers and co-workers and all the people you met later in life. They were your siblings, your brother, your sister, that child that grew up in the same house with you, or at least share some part of your family story. Those relationships can bring love, support, friendship, and laughter. They also can bring competition, misunderstanding, jealousy, some resentment, and sometimes lifelong conflict. So this season, I'm going to talk about it honestly. I want us to talk about why siblings compete, and about the comparison and favoritism that show up, how birth order and family roles can affect things, and why old family wounds can follow people into adulthood. Nobody ever deals with them. We'll also talk about boundaries and healing and what it means to step back and look at things a little differently. But I have to be clear. I'm not here to blame your parents. I'm not here to blame your siblings or anybody else. That's not what I do. What I want us to do is to take a step back, look what has transpired, think about how it affected us, and maybe how we can move forward towards something healthier. This season will have 8 episodes, and each episode will build on the one before. So I will not just be jumping all over the place. We are going to take our time. We're going to walk through this and we're going to deal with it honestly. And so we're going to start with the foundation. What is sibling rivalry? Is it normal? When is it healthy? And when does it become something that can damage the family? Okay, sibling rivalry. Most of us, when we hear about sibling rivalry, we think, well, that's just brothers and sisters fighting and getting on each other's nerves. And that could be a part of it, but it's not always that simple. Sibling rivalry also consists of competition, jealousy, and tension. and can also be a child feeling like they're not being seen, not being heard, and not being treated fairly. And if an adult does not pay attention to it, that little thing can grow into something much bigger. You have to keep in mind most of the time when it starts when we are children, it may start when a new sibling comes home, a new baby comes home into the family, and the older child does not quite know what to do with those feelings. They may not know how to say, I feel pushed aside because, in most cases that they don't have the vocabulary or they don't know how to put the emotions into words. And they may not know how to say, do you see me? And because of that, they start acting out. They become fussy and they start trying to figure out where they fit. And let me tell you, children notice. They are paying attention when you don't even know they're paying attention. And they may not always have words for it, but trust, they notice. The child may not come to you and say, I feel emotionally displaced in this family. And, and let's be realistic. No child is walking around talking like that. But they may say, why don't she always gets to do that? Or why are you always taking their side? And what that child is actually telling you is that some things sometimes don't feel fair to me. And when a child feels that way long enough, they get mad. Mm, They start acting out against their brothers and sisters. Now understand, sibling rivalry does not automatically mean something is wrong with the family. No, that's not it. Most of it's normal. That's just part of growing up. Children are learning how to share space and attention, deal with another child being loved in the same house, and at the same time figuring out who they are. And they're going to bump heads while they're trying to figure all of that out. And that does not mean that the family is broken. It just means that somebody needs to be paying attention. Normal does not mean we ignore it. Normal does not mean we let children tear each other down. And normal does not mean parents get to say, oh, they'll be all right while one child is being wounded and no one is doing anything about it. There's a huge difference between children learning how to deal with conflict and children being damaged by conflict. Did you understand that? There is a difference between children learning how to deal with the conflict and children being damaged by the conflict. Now, healthy conflict can teach children how to solve problems, how to be patient, how to communicate, how to compromise. And let me, oof, compromise, that's hard. Let me be truthful. Oh, compromise, because when you compromise, you have to give something to get something. And again, that's just part of life. But unhealthy rivalry is different. There's damage involved. It can mess with an individual's self-esteem. It can create resentment, division in a family. And if it's not dealt with, the same hurt can show up years later in grown folks who are still reacting to something that happened when they were children. So we're not just asking, do siblings fight? Of course they do. They're going to fight. It's just part of life. And get over it. The real question that should be asked is what kind or what type of fighting is involved? Is it something that can be learned from? Is it something that can be corrected? Is it helping them to understand each other better? Or has it developed into something that wounds and divides and follows people into adulthood? And that's what we're going to look at. It's my hope that as we talk and go through this, maybe it helps you to look at your family, your own childhood, and even your children a little differently. Now, why siblings compete in the first place? And most of the time, it's not about no toy. It's not about a bedroom. And it has nothing to do with food or clothes or anything like that. Most of the time, underneath all of that, there's something else going on. And one of the biggest things could be attention. We've got to keep in mind that children want to feel loved. They want to feel valued. They want to feel noticed. And when a child feels they are being overlooked, even if a parent does not mean any harm, resentment can start growing. Allow me to say, sometimes parents are doing the best they can. They're working, paying bills. They're trying to hold the house together. They're tired trying to raise children, and at the same time, they are trying to keep themselves together. So, this is not about blaming the parents or beating them over the heads. No, when the parent does not mean harm, a child can still feel hurt, and that hurt matters. Then you have comparison, and comparison can cut deep. And when a child keeps hearing, why can't you be more like your brother or more like your sister? That does something to them. Now, a parent may think that they're motivating the child and they may think they're pushing them to do better. But sometimes the child ain't hearing that. They hear you're not good enough. They hear your brother is better. Your sister is easier to love. And now the issue is not just between the parent and the child. That child starts looking at their siblings and starts saying, you're the fucking reason I don't feel good enough. And that's where things get messy. Then you have personality differences. You may have one child who is outgoing, one child who is quiet, one child who is wild as hell, and another one who acts like they don't give a happy goddamn. Same house, same parents, not the same person. And families have to understand that. When I was attending University of South Carolina, I had to learn in therapy. At one point in my life, I felt guilty about my success. I felt my sisters should be successful too. And I had to learn that when you come from the same parents, each sibling is still their own person. The goals may be different, outlook may be different, and success looks different to them. And their perception may be different. Oof. Oh, there's that word, perception. Perception can I said perception can mess up a whole family. You can have two children growing up in the same house, remembering that house two different ways, being raised simultaneously, coming up with two conclusions, two perceptions. One may say, Mama was hard on me. Another one may say, Mama gave you everything. One may say that Daddy never listened, and so forth and so on. Same family, different experience. And when individuals do not understand that, they spend years arguing over whose memory is the truth. Birth order can play a part too. The oldest child may feel some sense of responsibility for everybody. The middle child may feel squeezed in between, not being seen. And there's that youngest child, the baby of the family, that's allowed to get away with more. And then you have the only child that does not have any siblings, but they have cousins, and they're going to experience things altogether different. So, does birth order explain everything? No, no, be for real. But it can affect how children see themselves, how they perceive themselves, how they believe they are being treated in the family. Favoritism is another one. Sometimes it's real, and sometimes it is imagined. But either way, if a child believes a parent has a favorite, that belief can affect the relationship between the siblings. And you've heard parents say, I love all my children the same. And that could be true, but the child still is asking, do you see me? Do you hear me? Do I matter? And that is what we have to pay attention to. And then when you add family stress, when it pertains to a divorce and financial problems and illnesses, and you're moving from one place to another, and then you have death and you have caregiving, major changes in the household, all of that changes the family dynamics. And children feel the stress. Even when the adults think they're hiding it, the children, they may not understand the concept of paying the bills or marriage, may not even understand the concept of sickness or grown folks' business, but they feel the change. They feel the tension. They know that something has shifted. And sometimes because they do not know how to talk about it, they take it out on each other. So when siblings compete, and it has not always has to be bad. It could be about trying to be seen, trying to be heard, trying to feel safe, and sometimes trying to figure out where they belong. And that is why it is most important we look deeper than the argument, because the argument is not about the toys, it's not about the room of food, on the money and etc. But underneath that, it could be about the love, about the attention, about the fairness, may be about old hurt that nobody ever named. Now, let's get to differences between healthy sibling rivalry and unhealthy sibling rivalry, because all rivalry is not bad. A little competition can push you. One sibling may be good in sports, another may do well academically, one may have talent in some other areas, and another may be the one who can talk their way out of anything. And watching your siblings do well can make you say, okay, I need to step my game up. Nothing wrong with that. That's healthy. Healthy rivalry does not tear the other person down, nor does it make them feel small. It is more like, I want you to do well, and I want to do well. That's the difference. Think about the Williams sisters in tennis. And I don't know them personally, but I remember watching them play on court, competing against each other. You can see the rivalry between them and you can see the competitiveness between them. But at the same time, simultaneously, you can actually see where each one is challenging the other, motivating the other, pushing the other, challenging, pushing. See, both have the talent and drive, and yet they still have love, respect, and support. That's healthy. You can compete with somebody and still clap for them. Understand that. You can still compete with somebody and still clap for them. You can want to win and still be happy when your sibling wins. That's growth, that's maturity. Healthy conflict can teach children how to handle life, because in life, you're not always going to get your way, and you're not always going to be first. And everybody is not going to stop what they are doing just because you're upset. Again, what? That's part of life. And when conflict is handled the correct way, children can learn how to talk things out. And they learn how to calm themselves, and they listen and share and compromise and understand there's a difference between listening and hearing. And as I stated before, compromise can be hard. But if you're going to deal with individuals, you're going to have to learn it sooner or later. Unhealthy sibling rivalry is a whole different thing. I'm not talking about children fussing over the remote or somebody getting mad because they did not get their way. I'm talking about a pattern. I'm talking about constant fighting with no resolution, and bullying and threats and intimidation, embarrassment, humiliation, and eventually physical violence and destroying property, turning family members against one another. And that is more than kids just being kids. That's harm. And I know some people do not like to hear it, but unfortunately, that is just how siblings are. Wrong answer. Siblings may fuss, going to argue, and they're definitely going to get on each other's nerves. That's normal. But when one child is being damaged and targeted or made to feel small in their own home, an adult needs to step in. Parents, grandparents, whoever is in that house, an adult has to be willing to take a step back and ask what is really going on. It's not who started it. It's not that. It's deeper. You have to ask, why do you have all this anger? Where is this jealousy coming from? Why are you resentful? Because if nobody deals with it, that hurt does not go away, does not disappear. It can turn into low self-esteem, anxiety, depression, resentful, division in the family that follows people right into adulthood. Then you have grown folks still reacting to something that happened when they were children, still trying to prove they matter, still waiting for somebody to say, I see you. So the question is not, do siblings argue? Yes, they do. The real question is, what is the conflict doing to them? Is it helping them to grow, to mature, to communicate, to respect each other? Or is it somebody being wounded by it? That is what we have to look at. Now, sibling rivalry does not always stay in childhood. People grow up and they get married, they have children, they start careers, move away, they build a whole life. And yet, some of that old hurt can still be sitting right there with them. You may see it, you may experience it during the holidays when everyone gathers together in the house, relatives getting back in the same room, and the old feelings start showing up. You may see it when your parents are getting older and the decisions have to be made as to who is going to help, who is going to be the caregiver, who is going to make the decisions, and who is going to show up. Now, and let's not add money and the inheritance and the property or somebody feeling like they did more, they gave more, they sacrificed more, or was treated unfairly. And that can bring up a whole different thing. And the hard part is sometimes nobody even remembers exactly where it started. It's been there for so long that the family keeps feeding it. No one remembers who lit the match, but everybody keeps throwing wood on the fire. While I was growing up, I don't remember any major rivalry between my sisters and myself when we were young. My parents divorced, and of course, things changed. The family dynamics changed. I went one way, my sisters went another direction. The relationships developed with different sides of the family. And when that happens, people start carrying things that nobody's really willing to talk about. Later in life, learned and started hearing things I did not even realize were being carried. Who was a favorite? Who was closer to whom? Who showed up? And what certain moments meant. And then I started thinking, well, hold up, bitch. That's what you saw. That's how you perceived it. And that's how I learned how powerful perception can be. You have two siblings growing up simultaneously in the same family, around the same people, and still remember that family in two different ways. An individual can remember love, another remembers pressure. One remembers being protected, one remembers being ignored. Same family, different experience. Baby, whew, perception can mess up a whole family if nobody ever sits down and talks about it. And understand, having that conversation is not always easy. It takes something for someone to say, listen, I want a better relationship with you. But if we're going to have that, we need to talk about what is really going on between us. And that means being honest. That means being transparent. That means saying that this is how I remember it. This is how it affected me. This is what I need if we are going to move forward. And everybody's not going to be ready for that. Some are going to be defensive. Some are going to deny everything. And some are going to act like you are the problem because you finally decided to say something. But the bottom line, the truth, you cannot make an adult do what an adult does not want to do. You cannot force hearing, accountability, forgiveness, or even reconciliation. You cannot. And at some point, you have to take a step back and ask, what is healthy for me? What gives me peace? What kind or type of relationship can I actually have with this individual without losing myself? And sometimes healing looks different from what we thought it would look like. It may be better conversation, could be forgiveness, boundaries, distance, and it may be accepting that the relationship would never become what you hoped it would be. And that sounds hard, but sometimes peace is healthier than pretending. Now understand, I'm not saying that this is your story. I don't know your family. I don't know what happened in your house, but maybe it gives you something to think about. Because when rivalry grows up, it's no longer just about children fussing. It's about adults deciding whether they're going to keep carrying the same pain or whether they are finally ready to look at it honestly. Whew. When it comes to sibling rivalry, people say a lot of things that sound good, but not really. When you really sit back and think about it, some of those things are just not true. And if parents, grandparents, or even grown siblings believe the wrong thing long enough, they can mishandle what is really going on. So, for a moment, let's talk about people believing sibling rivalry is always harmful. No, it's not. A little rivalry can be a part of growing up. When it's handled correctly, children can learn how to communicate better. They walk through disagreements, they compromise, they understand that everything is not always going their way. The problem is not every disagreement. The problem is when nobody knows how to deal with the disagreement. You've heard people say good parents never have children who fight. Lies. Even in a healthy family, children are going to fuss. Of course, they're going to argue. They're going to get on each other's nerves. And that does not mean the parents have failed. It just means you have different personalities living in the same household. Now, if the fighting becomes cruel and it's constant and it's harmful, well, that's a different situation. But regular conflict between siblings, part of life. Here's something else that people get wrong. Fear does not always mean identical. Understand that. Fear does not always mean identical. A lot of parents think, well, I have to treat every child exactly the same. Who said that? No, you don't. You need to treat them fairly because each child has their own personality, their own needs, and their own way of understanding the world. And you got one child that has to have explanation, you have to be a little bit more focused on. One needs more structure, and then one needs one space, and then you have one that needs to be direct and stop dancing around the issue. And that's not favoritism, that's paying attention. Brothers and sisters can fight and they can still love each other. This idea that conflict means there's no love, bullshit, lies. You can also love somebody and still disagree with them. You can love somebody and still need distance. And you can love somebody and still say, now listen, I ain't up for your shit today, not putting up with that. Love does not mean there will never be tension. It means there has to be enough of honesty and respect to deal with the tension when it shows up. Some siblings grow out of rivalry, some do not. When the resentment is never addressed, it can turn into an unhealthy family pattern. That is how you end up with grown brothers and sisters still arguing over something that happened 30, 40, 50 years ago. And then by then, it may not even be about that one moment anymore. It's about years of feeling overlooked, being compared, being misunderstood, and pushed aside. Now, should parents jump in and solve every disagreement? No, please. Children need room to learn how to work through small conflicts. They need to learn how to talk. They need to how to listen. They need to apologize and share, calm down and move on. But there's a line. When the situation turns into bullying, and cruelty, and emotional harm, physical harm, and when one child is always being targeted, the adults need to step in, not to control everything, but to protect the child and deal with what is happening, what is really happening. And let me say something about the oldest child because people love putting everything on the oldest. And I can say that because what? I'm the oldest. You should know better. Now, I understand responsibility. I was the eldest in my family, and there were certain things expected. Back then, during the dark ages, what you did what the elders told you to do, whether you wanted to or not. But being the oldest does not mean you caused every problem. You got a younger sibling that can be as much more provocative and manipulative, and they can start mess too. So, no, do not put everything on one child because they were born first. That's not fair. Rivalry is not just for children close in age. That's definitely the wrong answer. It can happen at any age, at any stage. When you're young, it may be about attention, but later on, it can be about achievement and caregiving and inheritance, or who has the most say in the family. And age does not always end rivalry. Sometimes it only changes what people are competing for. And we have to talk about favoritism because that one can sit in a family for years. Parent can say, "I do not mean to show favoritism," and it could be possibly true, but the intent is not the whole story. Perception matters. If a child feels compared, they feel overlooked, dismissed, treated unfairly, they can shape how they see their siblings, how they see their parent, and how they see themselves. Perception, ooh, perception can mess up a whole family. So, bottom line, the goal is not to stop every disagreement. That's not being realistic. The goal is to help, to assist families handle conflict with honesty, with respect, fairness, and some emotional control. Because if handled correctly, conflict can teach something. Ignored long enough, it can leave wounds that can last for years. And that is what we're trying to understand. So that is why I wanted to start the first season with sibling rivalry because it's just part of life. It's part of the family dynamics. And whether we admit it or we don't, a lot of us are carrying things from years ago that we never really stopped long enough to name. And it could have started out small, could have been something serious, and could have been one moment that stuck with you, or years of feeling like you had to compete for love and for the attention and respect, or even your place in the family. Keep in mind, as we get older, we have to look at things differently. Not that we can stay stuck in it, not that we can keep blaming people, and definitely not so that we walk around angry for the rest of our lives. We got to look at it so we can understand it. Because once you have an understanding, or once you understand what has transpired, you have a better chance of figuring out what to do with it. And that takes honesty. And you have to be willing to take a huge deep breath and step back, and you have to look at yourself. You have to look at yourself in the mirror. You have to see yourself raw. You have to see yourself naked, and you have to be strong enough and confident enough to see yourself as you, not the resume version, but you. And the version that says, "I'm fine The real version of you that knows what still bothers you, what still hurts, and what you may have never said out loud, that is not always comfortable. But keep in mind that half the battle is acknowledging what is there. So, here's your question. What is your earliest memory of conflict with one of your siblings? And you think about it. How did it make you feel? Was it resolved? Or whether everybody just moved on and like nothing happened? And if you did not grow up with siblings, think about your cousins or other family members. Were there comparisons there? Did you feel overlooked? Were you trying to earn their love and attention or their approval? And keep in mind, I'm not asking you to go deep and dig up something just to make yourself upset. That's not my point. All I'm asking you to do is to think about what you cannot understand where we are, because you see, you have to be honest about where certain feelings started. And from there, maybe the next step is a conversation. Maybe it's a boundary. Maybe it's forgiveness. Maybe it's peace within yourself. Whatever it is, it has to start with honesty. Now, before I let you go, allow me to share some things with you. If something we talked about today made you think about your own family, your own siblings, your children, or something you have been caring for a while, please, if you don't mind, go to the website and use the Ask I section. You do not have to figure it all out. Just send a question, a thought, or whatever you are trying to sort through. And you never know, what you ask may help somebody else who is dealing with the same thing but has not yet found the words for it. I also want you to know that this platform is not just about me talking. In future episodes, we'll be highlighting independent artists and musicians, comedians, DJs, spoken word artists, and other creative voices who deserve to be heard. And we're not forcing that feature before it is ready. And when the right artist is confirmed, we will bring it in the right way, because I believe people need a place to shine. They need a platform. They need a place to where they can showcase their craft. We also have sponsorships available for individual episodes as well as full seasons. If your business or your brand, organization, or service lines up with the kind of conversations I'm having here, I would love to hear from you. And you can support one episode, or you can support a full season, or you can ask about featured placement on the website. And since the season is about civil rivalry, I'd like to leave you with a couple of books that may help you think a little deeper. But keep in mind, unless we no you keep in, no book is going to fix your family by itself. Understand that. But the right book can help you reflect and can ask better questions and maybe see something you did not see before. The first book is Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. And I like this one, especially before the season, because family love needs limits, respect, and healthy access. And you can still love people and still have boundaries. You can care about people and still say, listen, not today, not putting up with it. Let's be healthy. The second book is Adult Sibling Relationships by Jeffrey L. Greff and Michael E. Woolley. Now, this one connects because sibling relationships do not stop changing just because everybody is grown. When you add aging parents and caregiving and old wounds and different memories, as well as family expectations and money to the picture, whew, things get complicated. And again, these books are not requirements. They're just resources, something to help you think, take a step back and look at the relationship a little different. And if we include links on the website or in the show notes, some may be affiliated links, means the podcast may earn a small commission if you purchase through them at no extra cost to you. That just helps support the work and keep the conversations going. Before I close, let me say, what we talked about today is for conversation and reflection and entertainment. And again, I'm not your therapist, I'm not your counselor, and I'm definitely not here to replace professional help. I'm just your Dutch uncle, sharing what I have lived, and whatever I've learned, and what I believe might help somebody think a little differently. So take what helps you, sit with what makes you think, and when you need real guidance, please talk to somebody qualified to help you. I appreciate you stopping in. Next Tuesday, we're going to talk about why do siblings compete looking beyond jealousy? Because sometimes sibling jealousy or sibling rivalry is just not jealousy. It can be birth order, it can be personality, temperament, feeling overlooked, competing for attention, trying to figure out who we are in the family. And we're going to talk about why children can grow up in the same house and still have two completely different experiences. So, here's a thought I want you to carry with you. Every child wants to be seen, valued, and loved. And until then, remember this: you have value, you have worth, you have love, and most importantly, I love you more than I love my luggage. Y'all take care. I'll see you next Tuesday. Love ya.